The pandemic had a lot of challenges. For some, it could have been a sense of isolation. For others, no support systems around them. One group is trying to help out where they can and bring people together. The Mutt Movement celebrates community and encourages people to get involved and volunteer.
My name is Hayden LaRiviere, and I'm the co-founder of the Mutt Movement. It began initially with just doing some service work around the city, which included dropping off food for folks who needed, and in preparation for the winter, dropping off winter gear and warm clothes for them to use what we understand to be a very cold season.
Yeah, it's been a hard winter for some people. I mean, like with inflation, the price of groceries and everything, it's really cool to hear about initiatives that are going out of your way to help out others. Well, how about you tell me a little bit about the inception of this movement, like how it came to be and what sort of initiated that spark to get involved?
So personally speaking, I just graduated university, well, I guess in October. I'm a teacher, and I pretty much just sat back down in my seat and realized that I wanted more of my life and I wanted to do more. And not to say that teaching isn't community work and service work, but I just felt like I was kind of searching for more. So I had got a hat made, and I just thought it would be pretty rad to put mud on it, just basically because as a kid, I always felt kind of mixed up and like a mutt. And the kids would always remind me that I was. So as a way to kind of reclaim that slur, I put it on a hat, and I just thought it was really cool. And then I was already kind of out there giving back in little ways I could. And I figured instead of going down the path of, being in a classroom and doing that whole gig, maybe I'll hold off on it a little longer and then pursue this other opportunity. And I think basically the idea was to not be like an old man bitter sitting in a classroom and then wondering, what if I didn't do that thing that I wanted to do? And that thing was Mutt.
It's so important to get active and involved, because as we've been witnessing recently, for anyone who's on social media and YouTube and all that, the whole manosphere that's been going on, the whole disenfranchisation of young men and everything, has caused them to kind of drift towards these more right-wing radical ideologies. So getting people involved in their community on the ground, make sure they don't feel isolated. I think that's so important, and having these movements and talking with people is so important, especially right now as things are so difficult.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of guys I know personally, and then just people I see on the internet, probably it started around 2016 if I were to pinpoint an exact date, where the culture started to kind of shift, and suddenly people were just upset and mad at academics for some reason, and they thought that there's these agendas that are happening and all the deal already. So I think my vision around Mutt was just to come as you are and just celebrate your individuality and what you bring to the table. And I don't care, and the people I associate with don't care who you are, what you are, who you love, any of that stuff. It just it's all about just being a good person and giving back to your community.
Creating these centers of just celebration and inclusion are great. I had an interview with the Scandinavian Cultural Center, and they're just so excited every time they have one of their festivals or celebrations to just invite the community down and just share it with them. It's it doesn't matter if you have no ties to the Nordic countries or anything like that, just to have you down to celebrate with you and share that enthusiasm. And having these things it's so great. So you mentioned helping out a little bit over kind of the winter. What are some other things that the Mutt Movement is involved with? And is there kind of what sort of group and network do you have so far?
I think when I started this whole thing, my vision was to just help support all the great institutions and organizations that are already in place. I never really thought to expand this into anything other than just an online community movement. Our group, we're there to support, I don't want to name names, but the nonprofits that are in the city now. How we do that is we just help with donations. We gather donations just from folks online. We look online on Instagram, and generally these nonprofits will release these wish lists, and we'll look at those wish lists, and we'll just kind of pick out items that we can afford in our budget, and help support them that way.
I think what's so cool about this is it is a opportunity to inspire everyone that you're going on, you're seeing, okay, what organization needs a little help right now, where can we kind of like offset a little bit to help out, and that can inspire others to be like, hey, you know what, volunteering and getting involved, maybe it isn't as daunting as I was first expecting. Maybe I can just go to be like, oh, they need X, hey, I can help out with that.
Yeah, and I think it's ultimately beneficial on both sides because you're helping folks out who need it, and then you're also filling your soul, which is something that at the time I really needed and I benefited from. So selfishly, I am doing that work, but then it's also to help support brothers and sisters who are in need of that help. So I'm grateful to do it, and I'll do it all day, every day, even if people don't know who I am. And you could be like, anyone. You could be yourself or your brother or sister, whoever it is. Everybody's an individual. Everyone has the power to do that, to get out there and help. Even if you have no money or you can't walk or you can't lift anything, there's still ways you could help. And we're just trying to kind of preach that message. Apart from that work, we also do similar work as yourself when we sit down with folks and we kind of hear their stories, and we kind of summarize that story and share it on our Instagram. And one thing that I kind of noticed among these conversations is that you could literally pick off like captivating and interesting and just beautiful, because the old adage, it's like everyone has their story and everybody has a compelling story to tell. It's just a matter of taking the time to listen to that story.
So is there any one story that's kind of like stood out to you that you're like, wow, this is very unique, very interesting. I'm glad we had an opportunity to share it.
That's kind of a Sophie's choice, to be honest, because it's like every single one of those stories are really good. No lie, I have learned something or connected something to my own life off every single story that I've heard. One of the more interesting stories, I think, and it really kind of exemplifies what Mutt stands for, is I met this young girl. Because she's a minor, I'm not going to post her online, but I just met her in passing. We were just chatting. She is from the Philippines, born and raised in the Philippines, but her great-grandparents moved from India. So ethnically, she's Punjabi, but speaks fluent Punjabi and fluent Tagalog. It's just kind of a perplexing thing because you look at someone and you think, oh, that person's going to speak.
Yeah, you don't associate those two things at all.
And then her father has like a Filipino accent, but he looks ethnically Indian. So I was just like, that's crazy. I've never heard that before or seen that before. But very cool, very cool. So that stands out of my mind for sure.
There is a community in Brazil. It is the largest Japanese population outside of Japan, and out there they speak Portuguese, and it's like, wow, the world really has become interconnected.
Oh yeah, especially Winnipeg, Treaty 1. We are in the center, I think, of Turtle Island. We have people coming from all directions, and we just kind of settle here, and you get to go to the supermarket or the mall or wherever, and you see all types of people. And I don't think people realize like how beautiful that is and how much of a blessing that is, because I also work with a lot of Ukrainians, and they tell me, when they get off the plane, it's the first time they see like a certain person of color. They have the odd, black person in Ukraine, but to see all of them all over is just like such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is so nice to be in Winnipeg, and I know everyone outside of like Manitoba and Winnipeg's like, oh, Winnipeg. But it's like, no, you actually have to come here and like feel the lifeblood of the community. Going out during like summer festivals is so much fun. Like right at the end of fall with Nuit Blanc, going out there, seeing the light, seeing the work of artists, Folklorama, we have culture days. There's so many cool things in Winnipeg, so many stories to share. And it's just, we have some hardships here in Winnipeg. We have poverty, we have crime, but movements like yours can help bring people together, have conversations around like, what are some of these systemic issues that are causing these? What leads someone towards a life like this, or what are the areas and shortcomings where we could actually support people that are in difficult times? That's why I think like having any sort of connection can slowly lead to better outcomes for all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Winnipeg is like I always say my sister, my big sister. I'm allowed to talk about her, but you're not allowed to talk about her. You know? Um, she's awesome and I love her, but you can't talk about her if you're not from Winnipeg, right? But yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like we just gotta focus on the education piece and level the playing field as far as an understanding and empathy for certain folks in our city who are struggling. Because so often through our work with newcomers, like the pamphlet on the history of Canada is like 3 papers long. You know, it's like they have no idea. And then another pretty interesting thing that I found out is that in their countries, they actually have Canada classes where they have a person from their country teach them about Canada. They come with all sorts of assumptions, all sorts of stereotypes. They land here and they say, "Oh, look at that. That's what I learned in Canada class in Bulgaria or whatever." You know, so it's just a matter of kind of showing that the compassion to our newcomers, trying to bridge the gap between them and the people that are already here, also with our Indigenous brothers and sisters as well.
Of course,
because,
of course.
Yeah.
We have a project that we're working on that we first started when there was that first announcement of the 215 potential graves out in Kamloops.
Mm-hmm.
We were reaching out to Indigenous folks and be like, hey, just what are your thoughts? And it's kind of evolved into an exploration of the history of residential schools. So we have 10 individuals who have either attended or have had family who attended to share their stories and experiences to get a better understanding of what it was like for an individual. So for when newcomers do come in, they have an understanding of like, oh, you know, for some Indigenous communities, the residential school system was incredibly harmful and destroyed entire cultures and communities. And of course, how is a community supposed to be healthy if all they've ever known is kind of destruction and hatred?
Yeah, that's crucial. And if we want to be the generation that really kind of facilitates that change, we got to get our boots on the ground now and start
and
having these conversations.
Getting youth engaged and voting, like the turnout for the Winnipeg city election. Oh my word! Like we gotta get youth more involved. It's hard to be like, okay, what does Gen Z need to feel motivated to go out and vote?
Yeah, voting is one thing, but I will say in credit toward Gen Z, with someone working in schools, I could see that this new generation coming up are like it's almost like they don't need any advice from us. Like they're just so powerful. They have such a loud voice. They know what they want. They know what they need. I have no doubt that this next generation is going to really like take the torch and run as fast as they can. They're awesome. So a big shout out to the youth out there.
Gen Z does have like really good understandings of things, and it has been really interesting to see the progression towards more kind of progressive and left ideologies within Gen Z. Well, in terms of like queer folk and just diverse gender identities, doesn't matter. They're like, oh, cool, those are your pronouns? Great, no problem.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. You're gender fluid. Hey, that's fine. What are you feeling today? Tell me what your pronouns are today. I'll respect them. Like, it's so cool to see how effortless it is for Gen Z to accept people of like diverse identities and backgrounds.
Learned so much from them in that regard. I was born in the 80s, so I grew up kind of different, right? Obviously, like probably like yourself, I'm assuming. Maybe I'm being presumptuous, but we might be the same age. Seeing how open and accepting they are of others and being able to kind of just live their life and not be affected by others' choices is just inspiring. And yeah, like you said earlier, when people are isolated and they're not meeting people and interacting with folks and breaking bread, it's so easy to kind of get stuck in those old habits and those old ways of thinking. So it's important to get out and meet these people because they're awesome.
You're right. Man, I'm being too hard on Gen Z. You're right. Like, voting habits are hard. Like, it is hard to get out. But, like, yeah, they are getting involved. And I'm planning on, like, coming up as election season comes in October, I'm hoping to reach out myself to go to universities and stuff and talk with them, be like, hey, what are the things that you're concerned about? How can we bring this information to our elected officials and make sure they actually are working for us and not profiting for themselves? Because like the news coming out of Ontario and everything, you're like, oh my word.
Yeah, it's tricky when we talk about these kind of issues and then we bring politics into it, because I'm with you. Like that is a whole other bag of worms. Don't really feel like talking about it, to be honest.
No,
But
it's all good. It's all good.
yeah, like it's just like I grew up kind of not agreeing with the establishment, and I still for the most part don't, but there's a lot of things that I do agree with, and I think if we just kind of center ourselves with love and compassion, I think we'll be all right.
Fantastic. So kind of as just a quick wrapper, what can you tell people about, just in 2 sentences or less, what is the Mutt Movement and what do you do?
We are happy to help. Like, or we love to help, that's basically what it is. It's not really anything bigger than that. It's just like a group of people who really just want to make a difference for good in our city and do it together and show that even one person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people can make a real impact. And it's just all about linking our arms together and walking forward, no matter how scary something might be or how big it might be, but just kind of do it and you'll feel a lot better once you do.
So I got to ask though, what kind of inspired the logo? Like going back to kind of like that Felix the Cat, Steamboat Willie kind of era style cartoon.
Okay, so the logo is homage to Mickey Mouse. Obviously, like Disney, like being like growing up in the 90s, Disney like basically raised me. So I got a lot of my values and a lot of my I draw a lot of kind of inspiration from those movies. So it just seemed fitting to kind of go back to something I always loved as a kid. And I think it really speaks to the kind of attitudes and hearts that we have with Mutt to have a character like that. So yeah, we came up with that one and we love it.
Well, it's great. It's catchy. It's lovable. It's a great logo.
Oh, thanks.
Is there a specific Disney movie that's kind of your favorite, the one you kind of watched all the time as a kid?
Oh, there's so many. I would probably say Aladdin.
Good one. Solid.
Not the remake. I still haven't seen the remake, actually. I remember seeing I remember seeing Will Smith in the trailer and I was like, he looks weird. I'm not gonna watch that one. But yeah, like Aladdin, like my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up, and all my favorite movies are movies that were usually on like TBS. So like Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. But they did get me a VHS of Aladdin, and I watched the heck out of that movie. So that's one that stands out in my mind.
Yeah, my go-to when I was really young was Toy Story. I would watch it, rewind it, then watch it again, then rewind it. It's like, man,
that was a good one too. And you're certainly aging yourself by saying that. If you're talking about Toy Story 1, right?
Yeah, Toy Story 1.
Yeah, there you go. And the rewind, I think, ages you as well, saying rewind.
Have any stories you'd like us to share or communities we should highlight? Leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.